So today I want to give you a behind the scenes look at how I think while I'm coaching people, how I think while I am texting people when they are here in the office. I am going to take you on a journey to a place that you do not want to go inside my brain. It may not be entirely safe in there, uh, but it's safe enough. So, one thing that you have to understand if you're thinking about coaching, certainly coaching on this program, is that it's not just one thing. It's all about what ultimately the client really needs. And what I'm tracking and what I'm listening for is both physiological, but it's also emotional. It's about biology and mindset and patterns and your cells. So most people think that coaching is just about staying on track, and it certainly is. But what I'm really doing is a full body, full mind scan of actually what's going on with you. Now, when we're talking about our programs, depending on which program a client is doing, we are trying to get people into a particular state, a particular physiological state, and we call it fat burning. It consists of more than that, right? There's a lot of fancy language behind it, but it's this great state where your body is burning its own fat as fuel. In addition, healing is being amped up. There's something called autophagy, whereby your cells will eat the bad parts of them, right? Autophagy, which means self eating, basically, in Latin. And so, as long as you're in this state, as long as you're in this zone, everything is great. There are no problems in the world because you're burning fat, your energy is up, mental clarity is up, you're sleeping better. Like everything tends to be better because it's an overall correction on many levels, hormonally and nutritionally. And all this good stuff is going on, right? So, the first thing I want to do is make sure technically that people are in that zone. When you come in for a weigh in, that's what I'm looking for. I want to make sure when we put you on our fancy schmancy scale that measures all these different things, I want to make sure that your fat is going down, that your water or hydration is going up. I want to make sure that your metabolic age is going down. In other words, metabolically, you're getting younger and you're getting healthier. I'm looking at all of those kinds of factors. Now, ultimately, most clients are very myopically focused on weight. Did the number go down? Obviously, that's what we want. There's a reason we guarantee weight loss uh, at a higher rate than most people would ever have the cogliones to do. Am I allowed to say that? Cogliones? It's an Italian word, um, which means cojones. So we do guarantee the weight loss, and ultimately we do want to see the weight go down, but all the other indicators have to be there also, because it's not okay to rob Peter to pay Paul. So I want to look first technically and see what's going on. Now, this sometimes creates an immediate conflict because people are not technical for the most part. People don't think about their own physiology. And they tend to do this thing, whereas if everything is not right, it becomes about one of a couple of things. It could be character. It could be what they're actually doing. Like, what am I doing wrong? It could be, just self-blame. Oh, I've screwed up. I ate something I wasn't supposed to. Obviously, that has to be corrected, right? But it doesn't have to be an opera. I mean, we can make that simple correction. It involves obviously refocusing, recommitting. And so sometimes we have to have that conversation. And then sometimes it becomes about, I don't know, kind of this real emotional journey, like a person will get into places where it's like, no, nothing ever works for me. I'm the exception. And it could become a self victimizing, blame, beating up thing, right? And we never want to go there. So sometimes I have to intervene in that. And then other times it's kind of like, well, just the facts, ma'am. I need to get to the story. I need to see what's happening. And often there's an algorithm of questions that I'm going to ask. Compliance is among those questions. I might ask on a scale of 1 to 10, how compliant have you been? But even before that, I might ask on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you understand the program? Because if the initial understanding is not there, then everything is screwed up from the beginning. The compass is off. And an individual might think that certain things are acceptable to do on the program when they're not. So I have to find this out. It's very much a detective story. So we get that out of the way, the understanding, the compliance. And then we have to get into the nitty-gritty, the technical stuff. And I might ask some questions that are not expected, like, what color is your urine? Tell me about your sleep. How many hours are you getting? Are you waking up rested? There's a whole bunch of things that I might ask. And the reason I'm asking is because these are indications. The understanding and one of the reasons that you want to coach is that there's something to be said about experience. There's something to be said about objectivity. There's something to be said about someone who has seen thousands of people go through the program. That emotional component is not there for me. Now, that doesn't mean I won't be compassionate or empathize, sometimes commiserate. People have challenges in life. And guess what? Sometimes those have to be discussed as well. You say to someone, what's going on? And what's going on for them right at that moment could be something unexpected, could be some kind of a trauma. Life will throw shit at you. We all know this. So maybe we have to have a conversation about that. And depending on how acute the situation is, if someone has, for example, a family member that is sick, all their attention is on that. I'll ask, do you think you can execute the program at this time? Maybe the most appropriate thing to do is to take a bit of a hiatus. Sometimes when things pop up in life, the attention needs to go there to handling those things. I had someone recently, and their husband was sick. They're spending all their time in hospitals. And I asked her the question, and guess what? She was actually making her meals and bringing them in. I mean, she was able to do it, at least for a certain period of time. But this is what we understand. We understand that there is the physiology and then there is the human being. And there's no one who wants to be looked at as if they're only cells, as if they only consist of cells. Because there's a whole person and a whole narrative and a whole bunch of feelings and a whole bunch of circumstances that happen with any individual. I remember when my father was sick. My father passed from cancer when he was in his 50s. He was a young man. And I remember going with him to the hospital, and I remember the different doctors. And honestly, there were some doctors who were so focused on what was happening with his cells, they did not see a person beyond the cells. They did not interact with a person or the person's family. They were way too much into just the facts, just the data. And then there were other doctors just as brilliant, just as knowledgeable about the science, and they couldn't have been warmer or more compassionate. These were the people who remembered why they were doing what they were doing in the first place. And they really cared. I mean, my father developed friendships with these doctors. Not like they got together for lunch afterwards, but there was a real warmth and camaraderie. I hope I bring that to the table also. Knock on wood, what I'm dealing with is not that. But it also has everything to do with health. There is a lot of emotion tied up with it. And so hopefully I can be compassionate. And sure, there are times where that may not happen. But for the most part, that's what I'm aiming for. That's the signal. Okay? So I want to know, and you have to understand when you're on a program, you need to communicate to me. Here's what I say to clients at the beginning. I try to lay out what I need from them. And the first thing is commitment, naturally. And the second thing is communication. Because if I know, I can help you. And then the third thing is mental toughness. That's it. If you can do those things, you're going to win. It's all there, right? You're committed enough to be compliant. And that's the unfortunate thing about a weight loss program, is that you need to be compliant. You're willing to communicate with me, and you apply a little mental toughness because it's a change. And do we think that there's going to be no friction at all when it comes to a change? What universe are we living in? That doesn't happen in this universe. Just the word itself is scary enough sometimes. And when you're communicating to me, communicate about your state, how you're feeling, what you're doing, what you're noticing. This is what I'm looking for. It's very much a Jerry Maguire situation. Help me. Help me help you. And I promise I will. Okay. So we do want to link the biology to the behavior also. And sometimes we have to distinguish. Are the cravings that you're getting, if you're getting cravings, are those emotional cravings or those more physiological cravings? And there's a way to know. And that's the kind of question that I'm going to ask. So this is a window into the coaching process. This is how I coach anyway. I can't speak for everyone else. I'm not looking at you like a machine that needs to be just tinkered with, although I sort of am. Your body is a machine, essentially. It just so happens that you're sentient. But I want to listen to the whole system. Your language, your body, your cells, the different patterns. Because it's you ultimately that make it work. And so I'm working with you as well as with a technical program that's trying to increase your health on a cellular and very foundational level. So that's going to be it for today. I hope this gives you a little more insight into what I'm looking at, and it helps you to help me. And I am going to be with you again next week. So I look forward to it. Take care and have a great day.